The retreat happens at our Dawson Retreat House in Henry, Illinois. It's called Nazareth House. The retreats happen twice a year, one in March during usually the Lenten season and one in October. They go from Friday evening, about 7 o'clock, to Sunday afternoon, about 3:30 in the afternoon. We have a whole retreat team. Rachel's Vineyard team includes usually 2 priests and a counselor, official board-certified counselor. We also have 2 team leaders who kind of direct the flow of the retreat, and we have somebody to as a professional psychologist there, and also somebody who kind of helps with the music and the background things. We also have a person in the background to help set up the exercises so that the retreat can run more smooth. And while they're not busy setting up her exercises, they're in the chapel praying for the retreatants and the retreat team.
We invite anyone who's been touched by abortion to attend a retreat, whether that is the woman herself, her spouse, her husband, who may or may not be the father of that child, parents, grandparents, siblings, friends. We often have people come who work in the medical profession or perhaps in a pro-life position and have witnessed or experienced things that have affected them. And so each person is welcome, regardless of what their story is. We've seen just such beautiful fruit out of couples attending and, of course, men attending on their own. So to find men at a post-abortion healing retreat might seem unusual at first thought, but it's a very important thing to not remain isolated and own that experience if you are in relationship. It is a weekend that is grounded in Scripture, in an experience and an encounter with Jesus, who we often describe as the divine healer on our weekends. It's a very gentle, I always like to tell people that it's a very gentle procedure. Everything goes step by step. One thing builds on what we just did, and the next step to come is always explained. When you come, I always tell people the hardest thing that you will do that weekend is to step in the front door. And after that, there's a wonderful group of people who are there to support them, accept them, and then they find a wonderful gift in the other retreatants who are there to share their stories as well and to seek that healing.
Well, what we do is, for example, we try to intermingle the truth of who we are spiritually connected to God and who we are physically connected to God, because we're not just a soul, we're a body. And a body means we have emotions, and some of these emotions are very strong and powerful. And one emotion that can be very damaging and keep us from growing and healing is anger. And this is where our psychologist comes into play. The psychologist will direct those psychological exercises to help get in touch with the anger, the sources of the anger, how to release that anger and replace it with forgiveness and to accept God's forgiveness and mercy in their life. There's a prayer experience which is very welcoming and open to everyone. If you're a Catholic who has been away from the sacraments for a while, there's an opportunity to go to confession and get reconnected to the church. And if you're not Catholic, you can still talk to a priest one-on-one and get some good spiritual insights for yourself. There's also an opportunity to meet with Jesus in what we call Eucharistic adoration. And that's spending time with Jesus in the Holy Eucharist, which we believe is the real presence of the risen Jesus. And you can spend an hour or longer talking to Jesus and reconnecting to your baby. And a lot of retreatants say that's some of the most beautiful time that they spent on the whole retreat.
The team kind of steps to the background, and the retreatants themselves will form that bond with each other and begin to help each other in their hearing of each other's stories and their support and their acceptance. And so someone who feels like they can never be forgiven comes to know that acceptance and that trust, that ability to trust the people that are there very early on. So it's an important part of the retreat procedure. Everything that is done on the weekend is done by invitation. Each step of the retreat is explained before we do it. And at the outset of the weekend, we let everybody know that we are there to serve them. So if there's anything they need in order to feel comfortable, in order to take that next step, then we are there for them, and we'll do whatever it is that they need to be comfortable. Before they come on retreat, there's a lot of back and forth visiting by the phone, on the phone, and we will often make a call just a few days before the retreat begins, just to check in and make sure everybody's doing okay, that their plans are still in place, reassure them that all the anxious feelings they may be having are very normal, and just to encourage them again to follow through with that inspiration they had to seek this healing in the first place, and to bolster their courage. And we also are there ready at the door. If we see somebody hesitating in the parking lot, we'll go out and offer hello and an encouragement and help them in with their things. So thankfully, everybody makes it in the door. Each retreatant, I think, decides what level of community they choose, what level of community that they leave that retreat with. Certainly, they've spent the last 2 days in a very close environment with their fellow retreatants, and that's one of the most beautiful things about the retreat is the small community that's formed there. And they certainly leave with the opportunity to continue on as part of that small community. So it's very much an individual decision. The confidentiality remains always, as long as the retreatant wants that.
One of the biggest concerns of people when they come on a retreat is, will everything I say there remain confidential? Well, I can assure you that everything that happens in Rachel's Vineyard stays completely confidential there, and thereafter nobody will ever know from our part that you were ever on the retreat. In fact, we take it so seriously that the very first thing we do before we do anything else when we're in the circle is we pass out a card that says, I firmly resolve to my commitment to confidentiality. And everyone says that out loud, so everybody in the group knows we're on the same page about confidentiality. A lot of times people, when they are thinking about coming, they're afraid that they'll be judged. And Rachel's Vineyard is a very non-judgmental atmosphere. It's a safe spiritual atmosphere where we are there to simply be the handmaids and handservants of Jesus Christ. Rachel's Vineyard is not only nationwide, but it's worldwide. It's almost in every country. And they have a secure internet website where the people that are in charge of the retreat, they will let the people on the website know who's been on the retreat and give them a password for you. And only the people who have been on a retreat can get on this website. So it's very, very secure. And sometimes going on these websites and listening or reading of what people have to say can also be healing, saying, oh, well, I felt like that, and maybe I want to reach out to that person or to this group.
We like everyone to know that there is no obstacle to attending the retreat in terms of the fee. The fee covers all the retreat materials, the meals, and the lodging for the weekend. And when one registers, we ask that if they're able to make the $40 registration deposit. And then if there is need, then the $100 balance can be covered through our fund that has provided scholarships through donations of past retreatants and just a number of people who support the program. So it is possible, if circumstances are such that the $40 deposit is even a hindrance, then the entire retreat fee can be covered. So there is no process or really needed demonstration of financial need. It's just a matter of speaking to myself or Kathy when you call to ask about registering. That conversation, that finding something written about Rachel's Vineyard is a call from God to their heart to come to Him and to not be afraid, to speak their truth and to learn what it is that has happened to them as God sees it. I think I would just encourage you to be prayerful about coming. Try to sense whether this is your time. And perhaps it's not. Perhaps it is a time in the future. If you feel that this retreat would help you and that you are being led to consider it, I would urge you to put aside all your fears and all the things that might stand in your way and come. It's always a joy to see someone benefit from the retreat sooner rather than later in their life. It can be a new lease on all their life relationships with themselves, with, like I said, their family members, with God certainly, and with the church. Is truly an experience of transformation, witnessing transformation in people, even in the short time that we are with them as they walk through the retreat. To see someone come in frightened and perhaps downcast and fearful, to 2 days later seeing light and life in their eyes and their face, and having experienced love in a new way is a great privilege. And to see that happen over and over again is a great privilege in my life. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity. The retreat is a very profound experience, but it's a beginning of, like I said, a new lease on their life, perhaps a new way to look at their life, their past, their present, and certainly their future.
I think one of the most beautiful lessons that I see people walk away from is that healing and God's mercy is always available to them, even though they may have thought that they've committed the unforgivable sin. After this retreat, they realize there is no unforgivable sin. It's only obstacles we put up to God's forgiveness for us. The truth is that God never leaves us, but sometimes it's we who kind of leave God thinking that we've done something that is so disappointing to God that He wouldn't want us. God always wants us in a relationship with Him. He loves us as His children, and He wants us to be happy with Him and with each other. Like when we were kids, you know how free, happy-go-lucky we were, running around thinking life is good. Well, life is good. He wants us to be happy again and have a playful spirit and be able to reach out with our gifts and talents to help others to know and love Jesus Christ, the joy of God, and the gifts that we have to give from our heart. If you're afraid of coming to a retreat because you're afraid of being judged, please know that everyone at this retreat has only the feelings of love and respect for you. And that here's a place where you will not be judged. No one will condemn you, but we only want to be ministers of Christ to you so you can find the healing and the love of Jesus Christ on this weekend. The people who are on the Rachel's Vineyard retreat team have gone through the same kinds of experience you have. Many of the team members are post-abortive themselves. They've been through the Rachel's Vineyard weekend, and it's been so transformative and so hopeful and life-changing that they want to share it with other women. They don't want to keep it to themselves. They want you to have that same experience too. They came alive again, and they want you to have that new life too. If you can make a little bit of time in either March or October, we would love to have you there. We just can't wait to have you there in our family.